Good morning and welcome to Fridays on the Porch. I am your host, Drkatieoshea, and we are here on Friday on the porch, or for our Porchcast, if you will, unscripted, unedited, and uncut, so remember that, Porchcast, where we talk about all things holistic health and healing and bringing balance to our bodies to keep us in our optimal states. Today, I'm excited to welcome my friend and colleague, Jared Rodgers. Jared and I go way back, probably during the pandemic when we met.
Yeah.
He is the Chief Executive Operating Officer. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Of Life Force Senior Care, and we're excited to have you here. So cheers. Welcome to the porch.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's just crazy that we're in October and
We're not in October.
We're in November.
We are.
And the weather is is crazy warm.
It is.
It feels amazing.
Also breezy at the same time.
Also breezy. Yeah.
And what are you drinking today in the porch?
I have my Starbucks chai, so it's my routine.
Oh.
You know, you got to find your routines each day to find that balance in your life, and that's part of mine.
I love that.
Yeah.
I was thinking pumpkin spice this morning, but then it was too warm. It didn't
What's
feel right.
your go-to every day? Do you have like every day?
I love Stock's iced coffee.
Stocks? I've coffee. Okay. What is Stocks?
Oh, well, this is holistic living because it's going to make your life so much better.
Okay.
It's in the grocery stores, and it's just the iced coffee in a bottle.
Oh.
It is the best iced coffee. It is actually the iced coffee of one of the European soccer leagues.
Okay.
Per the labeling. I hope I got that right, marketing folks. But it is delightful. It is just crisp and refreshing. It's not watered down.
That's your, like, every morning.
That is my go-to.
You're throwing back
that is
Stokes iced coffee.
Stokes iced coffee. It gets me stoked.
I have to try it. Yeah.
Get that? Thank you.
Especially being from the 90s, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think you're a little more than the 90s, though, aren't you?
No.
Okay.
No, come on.
All right.
I mean, I was born in the 70s, but yeah.
There we are.
90s,
Lies start already.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about you.
Sure.
Your journey.
Yeah.
You've had a really interesting life, both in the healthcare world where you're out now, but even prior to all of that.
So it's kind of interesting how like things came back first full circle for me. So when I was, I guess, in elementary or maybe middle school, my mom came home one day, and my mom was a CNA at a local nursing home. At the time, it was called Denver Nursing Home in Denver, Pennsylvania. And she said, "You got a job?" And I said, "What do you mean I got a job? Like, I never applied for a job. What is a job? I'm 13 years old." And
what now?
she pretty much got a job for me at the nursing home that she worked in, which was not too far drive-wise. So it was doing yard work. So it was mowing the yard. They had me painting windows in the summer. Had me shoveling snow in the winter. Ooh. So
that was a job.
14 when I was trying to sleep in when the school bus was delayed for the snow. My mom like, "Hey, you got to come and shovel the snow." And so I'll walk. It's probably take me a good 30 minutes just to walk.
Okay.
Because she couldn't come pick me up.
Wow.
There was no Uber back then.
There sure wasn't.
But just being in that environment, and my mom was just very, very natural at it. There was a lot of, at that time period, there was a lot of lack of trust that developed during that time.
Okay.
Because in the news, there was like a lot of neglect, a lot of abuse. And some people go into professions not because it's their passion, because they think it's an easier route. And it doesn't always produce the best people. But where she worked was it was a great facility. It was a lot of locals, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, all of its local farmers.
Okay.
And my mom routinely would just bring residents home. It was a lot easier back then. It was it
wasn't considered kidnapping back then.
Right, there was no liabilities back then. So for Thanksgiving, we would have a husband and wife who were in the nursing home, she was just really natural at it. That even when she got out of that, she kept extending that type of love to neighbors. And I think some people can relate that there was this one particular older lady when my mom was older in life. If she would show up just to drop something off, the woman would be fully dressed with makeup, thinking that my mom's going to take her out. Because people, as you get older, people do get isolated. People do, unfortunately, miss those connections. But my mom was very natural at it, and so that was my first experience, even though it wasn't really working with the residents.
Okay.
It was really interesting too, because I would walk through the hall and these people like, excuse me, young man. And it's like, what's going on here? He felt like I was in a mental hospital, but it was dementia. I just didn't know what
You
it
didn't know at the
was. I
time.
didn't know.
Right.
I was a kid.
You were a kid baby. How could you know?
It was really freaky, you know.
Yeah.
Since we are in the hospital, but it was just so. Then through life, went into the military, and actually got injured. So I'm a disabled veteran, and then I went to college, and then from college I went into the financial advisor field. So it was a financial advisor for different companies, and then at the time I was actually in the process of going into the FBI. I was went through the whole interview process, and then there was like a freeze on the training, and then this opportunity presented itself of being able to develop um, a home care presence in New Jersey, and I did that, and it just kind of brought me back to just where I started when I was 14 years old. So it wasn't intentional, but it's a natural fit for me.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this for about 14 years. Started it the home care division in New Jersey for living caregivers. It was just me, a desk, a telephone, and a computer, and
wow.
Now we have, I think, 70 or 80 employees at this time.
So you're big. You just have a new office.
We have a new office. We grew. It's just growing over time, and as a business owner, it can be very very lonely because even when you're going through difficult times, whether it's professionally or personally, you gotta present yourself holistic.
Right. Smile on,
even though you might be going through challenges. And we have talked about this because you and I have, as you said, for years we've been friends, and we've kind of talked about our passions of entrepreneurship and those struggles and those self doubts and those questioning, like, what are we doing? And and you're losing yourself, but you're trying to find yourself, but you're finding yourself, but you're losing yourself.
Yep. Yeah. It's that cycle. And that hamster, he's fast. He's fast on that wheel.
Yeah.
So I guess a couple questions come up with all that you said there.
I just
Egypt.
Talking.
It's okay.
I was talking too much.
It's what you do. But we do only have 30 minutes, so just remember.
You did watch.
Kind of rely on my eyesight and the camera. Sometimes works.
Okay. We're good.
When my ADD kicks in, that's when I know we're about 30 minutes. Everyone has their trick in life to get through, right? That's mine is.
Yeah.
So my one question is, do you think you were brought onto this path for healthcare early on, right? 14 years old. That's very similar to mine. I was a rehab aide at a hospital. Thought I wanted to be a vet. Turns out, hated cats.
Okay.
Deathly allergic. Got a job.
Nothing wrong with cats.
Right? Nothing wrong with them. Just allergic. So
all right.
My eyes don't appreciate them. It's a different feel, right?
It's different, yeah.
Became a rehab aide at a local hospital.
Yeah. Just
worked with great people who I was like, I could do this every day. This seems like a fun thing to do. I didn't know the first thing about PT.
We're very good at it too.
Thank you. But it kept coming back to me. And Reiki, same thing, kept coming back to me. 16 years old was my first experience with Reiki.
Oh, okay.
I went to get a massage, and the girl was like, you should have Reiki. And I was like, no, rub my muscles and all my teenage wisdom, right?
Right.
And it just kept coming back. So with all that being said, like similar to yours, do you think that people just get brought back to where they need to be in life?
That is like a deep question, and I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
It's like you try to run away from your destiny, but no matter what you do, you keep coming back. I never really thought about that, but but if you look at my life, that's exactly what has been happening.
Yeah.
So I do feel, and I feel like the people don't do that full circle, or they try to run away from that. There's always that unsettledness in their life, or that something just doesn't make sense or not adding up. It's once I do, even with everything that goes on in my life, I feel comfortable in this field.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just relationships.
Yeah.
It's something that my parents were really good at. They were really good at developing relationships with people, no matter what backgrounds they came from. They were the least judgmental people I've ever known in my life, and they were very forgiving too. And I think that's something that I have learned too is just the importance of and the healing of forgiving. Doesn't mean you are foolish to go back
Right.
and put yourself in those scenarios, but just to be forgiving. So
Forgiveness is really for ourselves.
what's that?
The forgiveness is really for us, for ourselves. It's not so much for other people.
Right.
And I think that sounds so selfish,
Yeah.
but it really isn't. Like, you can totally forgive someone and recognize this is a very toxic, unhealthy relationship. Like, it's going to be a boundary, right? But you need that peace, because if not, that's the stuff that keeps you up at night,
right?
And out of alignment, and not able to hear those whispers or little glimmers of the world bringing you back to your purpose. These are things that I think about.
One thing I need to do better at is giving myself that quiet time to listen to those whispers.
It's hard.
I mean, you know me. I'm a freaking espresso bean. Yeah.
Yeah. A what now?
I said espresso bean.
Oh, espresso bean.
Yeah. I'm just bouncing a jumping bean. There we go. Okay. I just bounce all over the place.
Okay. I can see it now. Yeah. I was going to go squirrel, but
yeah,
that's fine. But it is, right? I mean, it's hard. It's hard enough to sit quietly, let alone to not fidget with your phone. Or if you get on your phone.
That's like the worst invention. Like, TV was always my escape growing up.
Okay.
And then now it's like the phone, and I'm like, I waste so much time on the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm being more mindful and purposeful with separating myself. And I've been getting into journaling more too.
Okay. Are you a journaler?
I'm starting to learn how to do it.
All right. It's hard.
Well, I'm not sure about you, but like, my mind is consumed with so many things. I forget about I go through like this deep emotional personal experience, and I forget about it like 15 minutes later. So I've also kind of been writing it down so I can analyze it. One thing I've learned in life, and I try to teach this to my kids, is that emotions are gifts from God. It's our natural feedback. And growing up, you don't want to feel those bad feelings.
Or sometimes you're told from adult figures not to.
Correct. But really, they're there to serve you.
They're there to serve you.
And when I learned that, it has helped me more.
Yeah.
So whether it's anxiety, whether it's sadness, depression, even joy.
Joy's
like
huge.
Yeah, like what's it teaching me? And I've grown a lot from having that awareness. So like, for example, I learned that with anger, like when you're angry, it typically means like a standard in your life has been broken.
Right.
So sometimes you have to better communicate your standard to the person that broke it.
Right.
Or even if it's yourself, sometimes it's like, so it's either communicating it or you have to redefine it.
Correct.
So, but that's been huge. It's like just to be aware of my emotions, and when I sometimes have negative feelings, like there's some negative feelings I have, I'm like, oh, I know I'm overwhelmed. I need to take a step back. I need to find out what's important. Okay, those things aren't really that important.
It's so true. And like when we're not in touch with those emotions, right? We get stress, cortisol, inflammation, all the things that just get us into these reactive triggers.
Yeah.
So why do you think? Do you have a thought on why people ignore those emotions?
Just a lack of awareness, lack of education.
Okay.
So I mean, with Reiki, you focus on energy, right?
Sure do.
And I don't know it as well as you do.
You could have come to my level 1 training class on November 16th.
Yeah, I could, and I might have to. But if you don't have that knowledge, you don't. I think it's just lack of awareness.
Yeah. For me personally, I know it was, right? Like Reiki was something that always tried to find me, and I kept repressing because I was taught that wasn't what I was taught, right? And so I didn't want to disappoint or embarrass, et cetera, et cetera. And then I realized, wait a minute, like, why do I feel awful? And you start listening to your body, and you're like, there's actually something to this holistic piece.
Right?
Because when we're not good at ourselves at our core, everything else just builds on top of that, a spirally mess, and eventually that, what is it? Toothpick tower just crumbles, right? Because it's not a stable base. Interesting. So how do you think, but you do a lot of work on yourself personally, and it's something I've always valued as you as a colleague.
I appreciate that.
And I think that's huge, and it shows in the work that you do in the professional space. Do you think a lot of people do that, or do you think a lot of people are just kind of
it's
getting through?
No, they don't. It's just they're not always ready to receive it too.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's why we have to go through our hard times in our life, because it puts us in a situation where we're now ready to receive whatever that next thing might be in our life, whether it's physical fitness, spiritual fitness, emotional fitness. Being in the service, in the military, you go through basic training.
Okay, right.
And
I picture a lot of running.
Okay. But I also was a search and rescue swimmer for the Navy too, and the training for that is more intense than basic training.
Okay.
And the first part and they actually had here's the crazy part. When I was training for a search and rescue swimmer, they actually had a psychiatrist on site all the time. And he was instructing the instructors on like some tips, how to push us to that mental breakdown. But what they would do is they break you down. They break you down physically. They break you down emotionally. They break you down mentally. Because
sounds awful.
They have to, because now they have to rebuild it. Because if they're trying to train you on the structure that you come with, they're not going to get results. So the military has learned the importance, and that's why when you go into basic training, you go in and they're yelling at you, they're screaming at you, they shave your head, they take all your belongings. I mean, I was told, like, don't take anything because you won't have any. Like, you will leave with nothing. I went there, the only thing I had left was my wallet, underwear, pants, shirt, shoes. You threw it in a big bin, and this is who you are, this is what you're doing now, and you really get like a huge wake-up call. So, so sometimes, like, when we go through our hard times in life, I call them chapters. You start experiencing this crazy amount of anxiety and uncertainty, and it's like, in the past, when I was 18, 19 years old, and I was standing at the helm of an aircraft carrier, I'm like, I can't do this. I learned very quickly that these feelings usually mean there's a new chapter that's coming in your life. Okay. And maybe it's time to be excited, and there's some growth that's going to be happening.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you carry that over in your CEO role, working with employees? Do they get shaved on day one?
They do get shaved.
That's weird.
They get shaved.
And how many
we give them scrubs. We give them scrubs, and we no. I do.
So you operate a cult.
Yeah, no cults. Okay. No cults. No brainwashing here. But I do. So yesterday we had a pretty deep discussion, because I'm really big on identifying what we can control in our lives. We can't control everything.
No, not at all.
So back to the military. Years ago, someone said, Jared, how are you so calm with everything that's going on? And I said, well, I kind of had some experience with this. The reason that part of the military, what they do is they have you go through all that. So when you go in life, you know what your body's going through. I'll give you a funny example.
I can't wait.
No, maybe I shouldn't.
No, you should. Now you have to.
So, like, in the service, they push you mentally and all that stuff. So they know. So when you go through this in real life, you know that you're not going crazy. It's just part of the physiology of what your body's going through. Okay. So, like, one time I was on watch. This was in Guam, and my watch was up, but it was like, I think it was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the person that was supposed to relieve me never showed up.
What else is there to do in Guam?
What else is there to do? What do you mean?
Like, what are you doing at 1 or 2 in the morning that you can't show up for work? Well, is that too literal?
Well,
anyway, finish your story.
Yeah. So,
sorry.
Well, in the military, you're standing watch and make sure no one's
trying to get in base. Oh no, I mean the person who didn't show up.
I don't know. He
That's
probably
what
sleeping
I mean.
in. Maybe decided to not show up. I don't know, but he didn't show up, and I had to also do his watch. But I got so tired that I actually, you go through a lot of mental challenges when you go through that. But I knew that I wasn't going crazy. I just knew that I was overtired.
Yeah.
So I say all that because So I really try to focus on what can we control.
Yeah.
And because we can't control everything. And then when things do start going left or right, we have at least maybe an idea of how to respond to that.
Makes sense.
Not that it's always going to be 100% perfect, but at least I empower and equip more. So when an employee doesn't do well, I say it was my fault for not setting them up to succeed. So, but if I set you up to succeed and you don't succeed, that's different. But you know, I do take the time to analyze and say, okay, the client that started with us, it didn't go well. Did we do everything we could to set this up to succeed? So we had this big just recalibration of what our services look like. What does that flow look like? And my message to everyone was, we all have a role here. We're not here to try to do each other's role, and we need to master his role. And it helped. So back to your question, like, do people really take the time to do this.
Yeah.
No, but what we'll do is we'll take the time to change the oil in our car, to change the tires of our car, right? But really what we need to do is we need to take the time to do those things on ourselves, whether it's sitting on the porch, talking to a friend, whether it's maybe just taking a walk. I've been doing a lot more walks.
Yeah.
Or maybe connecting, like for me, like connecting to God is important to me. So just reading the Bible, or maybe just listening to some music that reconnects me with Him. Or sometimes both my parents have passed away. Maybe it's just doing something that reconnects me to my parents, whether it's fishing or baking was my mom's thing. So I'm baking, which
we have seen your baking experiences.
Yes, I
the chocolate
baked some
chip cookies.
Yes,
back during the pandemic
for our
networking
little group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's true. I mean, I think it makes such sense what you're saying, and really where people lose sight of things. You know, and you said something about, I forget exactly what you said, but about having to be perfect, right? Or 100% emotions regulated.
Right.
I'm summarizing, not the same that you said.
You're doing fine.
Thank you. But I think that's one of the biggest lessons in life that I've had to learn and to give myself the grace with, because that is something that I find keeps me in unholistic balance, right? It keeps me in that fight or flight mentality.
Not being gracious to yourself.
Not being gracious to myself and expecting perfection.
It's funny how we're so easy to give it to other people, but we're not able to give it to ourselves.
So much so, right?
And how freeing it is.
So freeing. It's the best thing in the world when you're like, oh yeah, I totally did this wrong, did that wrong, right? As long as there's no harm on the other side of it, because clearly, harm is always our first principle, right? But when you really you take that expectation of perfection away, you take that expectation of 100% away, it allows you to be more authentic.
Right.
And when you show up as your true self, everything else just kind of falls into places. You know, those whispers kind of get a little bit louder.
Yeah. The
alignment, the things that are meant for you really fall in the line where they should, versus trying to force it or control it or those sorts of things.
Yeah, our state, that's one thing I learned, is the state that we put ourselves in. And sometimes like I call it the what if world. Sometimes when I go into the what if this happens and what if that happens, and I get worked up and I'm getting angry or I'm getting upset, and it's like, time out. Let's be in the moment. Let's just be in the moment and let's be present. And but when you give yourself that grace and you and show mercy to yourself, it gives you the opportunity to tap into your full potential. And not only is it fulfilling, but it allows you to serve people, allows you to access those gifts that you have.
It does.
It's a pretty cool thing.
It is. Some of the Reiki principles, they all start with just for today. Right? And it's just for this moment, just for today.
Yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't matter what we do when we leave this porch or what we did before we got here, right? It's just here and now on the porch.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, because it allows you to be present. And I'm not thinking about, oh, I got to do blah, 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 right?
Right.
I'm here and I'm thinking, oh, what question can I ask Jared next?
What is the next question you can ask me?
Oh, so what advice?
Right on the spot.
What's that?
What? I'm putting you right on the spot.
Jared, I was born
It's off the cuff,
unscripted, unedited. Let me get to my questions.
Unscripted,
Stop distracting
unedited.
me. So what advice do you have for people who are looking to dip a toe into that holistic space of finding themselves? Whether it's in the executive role that you're in, whether it's in a staff role, a custodial role, what advice would you give that person?
The first thing that comes to my head, which I'm not sure if this is even right, is start getting comfortable being uncomfortable. There's a lot of fears when you go in to start your own business.
Oh my God, yes.
A lot of fears. A lot of like...
list of them.
Yeah. Should we just go through that list for a second? Yeah. So the fears, there's also... for me, it was... When I actually started... when I had the opportunity to take ownership of Life Force Division in New Jersey, I was at a point in my life where my foundation was pretty much like wiped out, and I was like, life can't get any worse than this, so why not? Okay. But but even with that, there was just again, it's crazy. It's those hard times that really prepare you for some really amazing things happen if you allow it.
Yeah.
So you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable sometimes living in fear. You got to get comfortable in saying, well, maybe I'm not sufficient enough.
Yeah.
There was a book that I read. I'm really big into survival stuff, and there was this guy. I'm not even gonna try. I think I can try to say his name.
No one
Actually, I just said his name. They just bleeped it out with that truck.
No one can see the truck going by, and so it's really funny on the replay. People are like, "Why are they talking about the truck?
Why is there a truck?" Okay,
focus.
But squirrel.
Come here, squirrel. Guy whose book you can't.
Yeah. So, like, one
remember.
of the things he talks about is what's really important about survival is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the survival in life in general.
Yeah.
So his recommendation is when you're taking a shower, turning on ice cold and sitting under it and just enduring it.
So bad for our system. We know this physiologically.
It helps with inflammation.
But if you're living in a stress response, it is one of the worst ways to shock your body. Research proven.
Well, there's also there's combat breathing. There's all this other stuff that you can learn to help put yourself in a better state when you're going through that.
Yeah.
So, but it's what I do notice. There's a lot of anxiety in this world. Like, people just really battle with anxiety too. I do too. It's just having the tools to manage through that and to know that, okay, I'm having an anxiety attack, but I want to be okay. I'm really uncomfortable right now.
Yeah.
But I'm comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think that's my biggest thing is this. And there's so many things that you can apply that to, whether it's self-doubt. You're in a situation where I remember I had a issue with a payroll company that didn't pay the taxes, and their excuse was, well, I couldn't log into the system, so we didn't pay your taxes. And I'm like, but the state of New Jersey wants their taxes. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
State of New Jersey. Yeah, state of New Jersey. Like,
yeah.
But I was so upset about this, and I called the payroll company. It was a pretty big payroll company in Maryland, and actually I didn't call them. Here's what happened. I was
showed up at their door.
I was explaining to someone. I said, "Can you believe what happened?" And they said, "Well, why don't you talk to the CEO?" And I said, "I can't talk to the CEO." They said, "You're a CEO.
Yeah.
It might only be one person, but you're a CEO.
Right.
You're absolutely qualified to talk to
100%.
And so I did that. Just shift my mind to say, you know what? So I called the secretary and I said, "Hey, I need to speak with the CEO." Okay, So I met with him, and his name was Dave, and I was like, "Dave, here's what happened." He's like, "Well, my staff said this and this." I'm like, "Dave, we need to meet." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, we meet." So it was kind of interesting when I walked into this office, and it's like mahogany. It's huge.
The ivory tower.
You walk into a suite. Yeah. There's his own conference room over here. There's his office over here, and there's like and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So just being comfortable, being comfortable with being uncomfortable is huge.
It's true. You bring up a good point, right? Like, sometimes we get stuck behind a title, right? Oh, it's this and
no one gave that to us but us. Correct.
Right? And it's perception, right? Or, oh, I can't talk to them. They're the CEO. I remember when I was a baby PT in my second job, and there were some growing pains going on, and I had a connection with the CEO from an outside place that I sat on an alumni board with. Okay. And I talk about arrogant and young and naive, right? Like, I felt that this individual needed my 27-year-old knowledge. I don't even know if I was 27.
Yeah, we all did that.
Maybe 26 at the time, right? Like, but I really felt that, like, I had something to say. And so I emailed him and said, I would like to meet with you because I can tell you why your company's not doing well. And I think I did have my MBA at the time, but I was a baby, right? Like, I don't think I was even invested in the company yet, right?
That's so funny.
But they met with me, and they gave me the grace to meet with me.
That's awesome.
And it was him and the second in command of the company. And it actually was one of those experiences where I walked in literally unwell, right? Like, need to feel like, oh my gosh, what if I have an accident? I'm so scared. Yeah. And that's when I realized that waterproof pants are a thing. No. That it wasn't a title. I was talking to a person. And when I let go of this is the CEO or this is the whoever, it was just so much easier to have a conversation. And it wasn't in a mean capacity. It was, hey, I'm in pain as an employee. I'm feeling stressed. Is what I was expressing. I didn't know so wisely at the time,
Yeah.
right? But it really is, it lets you relate to people on an entirely different level. I definitely see it in the healthcare system, you know, and I will say, you know, my mom is not a nice person, but she did teach me something that stuck with me early on, and it was to be as nice to the cleaning staff as you are to the president.
Wow.
And that was something that I really took with me at my first job, and it's something I still take with me to this day. And I think it just makes such a difference, because when you talk to everyone the same and with respect and not with a title behind them, it just makes, I don't know, it makes your ability to bond with people and create rapport, I don't know, a little bit stronger, I feel like.
Sounds like your mom gave you a good gift.
She did give me a good gift. Yeah.
That's awesome.
She did give me a good gift in that regard.
That's important to always to see the human aspect of people.
Mm-hmm.
We all make mistakes. We all fall short.
Yeah.
And we're all, we're all trying our best.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
And sometimes we don't allow that self. But my dad went through something similar, and I'm like, my grandfather passed. I'm like, Dad, aren't you glad that your dad has passed? Because he wasn't a good father to my dad. And he goes, you know what, Jared? There's even good in your grandfather. So I think it's always important. It's like, how do we interpret these things, right? With the knowledge that you said your mom wasn't a nice person, but she gave you an amazing gift. I think there's a lot of healing in that too.
Oh, I think going through that whole healing process, you realize that, right, would I choose it differently? Sure, if I had a crystal ball to see the outcome.
Right.
But I also realized that you grow from pain. Yeah. And that some of the lessons that I needed to learn through that, I would not have learned if I didn't go through it. And so I am grateful for it, you know?
To follow up with being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah, let's go there.
Finding gratitude in your challenging times in your life.
That's one of the things I do. And that's one of the things I do still in my bedside care. You know, when I walk in and I have the cantankerous patient who is just mean and yelling, all the things, I'm like,
it's me.
Yeah.
I'm the cankerous one.
Oh, you would be horrific.
That's all right, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be like, stop pulling at the lines, Jared. Stop it.
But yes.
But I say, okay, your day is,
right.
Beep, kind of a day. Tell me one thing you're grateful for. And they're like, I'm not grateful for anything. Okay, so you want to go on hospice services? Because I know some people I can refer you to, right? Yeah. No. Okay, so take a minute. We're not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit here quietly and hold space with you. Tell me one thing you're grateful for. Yeah. And someone can always find a reason.
Right.
And it shifts your perspective, right? It gets you out of that anger and out of that resentment. And even if it's just for a moment, we know it's not going to last, right? Yeah. But if you just give a little bit of a glimmer into somebody's day, my own as well as, clients and patients, it helps you change the loop. It helps you change that story, that motor loop that you're giving yourself. And I think it has a lot of value.
100%.
Gratitude. Yeah.
100%. And it's people would tell me that, like, you're going to find gratitude in some of the most challenging times in your life. And I was like, no. But when you start spending more time in gratitude, eventually you're only left to look at the difficult times.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got away from it. What you're just talking about, this reminds me. I would get up in the morning, and that was part of the things I would do, is just I reflect on what am I grateful for now, and what am I grateful for to come, like in the future. And then eventually you get to the point like, oh, you know what? This was a really painful time in my life, but I'm grateful because of that it resulted to this.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Or because of that, it brought this out of me, or I grew from that. So
there's a challenge, like a 30-day challenge, a gratitude challenge, where each day you write down 3 things you're grateful for. Okay. But you cannot repeat anything.
That's tough.
It's so tough, right? Because day one I was like, Puff.
You know what? I'm adding Puff to my list too.
Puff doesn't want to be on your list. Oh. He doesn't like you.
Puff is the doggy.
Puff is.
Do they know do you guys even know who Puff is?
How dare you? How dare you?
It's her dog.
It is my dog. He's my soul child. We did try to bring Puff on the first episode. It did not go well.
Yeah, he's not the most compliant person.
He's amazing. How dare you talk about my child that way? This isn't going to end well for you.
I love him with or without teeth.
Yeah. Oh, he has all his teeth.
Okay.
He knows how to use them as well. So
I know. I just licked my cup. Sorry.
It just got unhinged here on the porch.
Let me get myself.
It's unscripted, uncut. Where was I going with? The gratitude journal, right? So it's 30 days, right? So I can't say I'm grateful for Puff every day. I am grateful for Puff every minute of every day. But it really challenges you to kind of after the first 3 or 4 days, we're like, I'm grateful for my house, my car,
Mm.
da 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 da. It makes you get into that nitty gritty of what you really are grateful for.
Mm.
And I don't know, I challenge you to that, Jared.
You're challenging me.
I'm challenging you.
Damn it. All right, I'll do it.
And you know what's funny?
Commit.
Okay.
I have my little notepad.
The one I gave you?
Yeah, so that when you did an event and you were giving it out to everyone.
Yeah.
I'll use that. I'll add my 3.
Yeah, one a day.
It'll be top secret, but
Yeah.
It'll be right on my desk.
There you go.
Top
You love
secret
it.
on my desk.
I have keys to the office, so I'm going to come in and check your homework.
Don't lose them, please.
I've already lost them once.
Oh, jeez.
But you're grateful. Grateful for it, aren't you?
Grateful.
So grateful. We love your repressed anger. So, as we're winding up, something we didn't talk about that always comes up for me when we think about healing and growth, right? We think about it from a perspective of, I'm healing the pain, I'm healing the anger, the resentment, da da da, right? We never think about healing to experience joy. Did you ever think about it that way?
No, you just hit me with that one right just now on the spot. Boom. So
to the porch.
Experiencing healing to lead to joy.
Yeah, we heal to lead to joy. We're not healing to...
Which is different than happiness.
Yeah.
What's the difference between joy and happiness?
I am not Webster. I do not know. I mean, happiness I feel like I can purchase with Botox.
I think joy
I think is internal.
You know, I think joy, more joy is, for me, is more... Yeah, happiness is like a feeling, but joy is a state. To me, it's a state.
Yeah. Like happiness is momentary and transactional.
Times in my life when things were just like falling apart, but I had this crazy amount of joy. You know, and again, going back to my faith, I personally believe in God. Not that everyone else has to do that. And just my experience with God and my time, even with Jesus, has really helped put me in that state of joy. And it's really sometimes, and it actually allowed me to see people in some gracious ways because that's how I'm looked at.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that I can be looked at with such grace, but it's also very healing too. Yeah. So, you bring up a really good point. It leads to joy.
Yeah, I challenge you to think
I will now reflect on that.
You should.
I'm going to be grateful for that insight.
One of your gratefuls for today. Happy to be part of it.
Now, is this intentional? They put the hole right in the O. Do you have the same thing?
I do. Caution hot beverage.
Thank you so much for my cup.
Yeah.
Fridays on the Porch, a podcast. Dr. O. Maximizing experiences. I love it.
He just added to the cup. It doesn't say all that. It just says Fridays on the Porch podcast with our website.
Oh.
But Jared has different vision than we do.
Drkatieoshea.com.
But yeah. So now you know how to get in touch with me. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
If folks want to learn more with you or connect more with you, have questions about Life Force, joining Life Force, how would they connect with you?
So Life Force, they could just call our office. It's 856-667-2922. They can go to our website, lifeforceseniorcare.com. I would say email me, but I'm not really good at looking at emails.
They could email Joanne, though.
Who?
Joanne.
Of course.
We love Joanne. Joanne's coming on next. I've had enough with you. We'll bring on the real leader behind Life Force.
But yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks for having me.
You're amazing.
Thanks for being here on my porch.
You know what? I know we're wrapping up, but you're very passionate at what you do, and you do it with such grace and such thoroughness. I really appreciate you, and I thank you so much for your friendship in the past several years, and just also being someone I could always reach out to and talk to. You're amazing.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Jared.
that.
I'm happy to be here for you. Appreciate you. Well, cheers to Friday.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.